Hello, everyone, and welcome. In this recording, I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming total solar eclipse taking place in the sign of Aries on the 8th of April 2024. This is without a shadow of a doubt one of the major astrological events of this year, and another event that is quite considerably even bigger than this eclipse is just around the corner from the eclipse date, because just on the 20th of April, Jupiter and Uranus are going to be meeting in the sky at 21 degrees of Taurus. So this is where, karmically speaking, we are in for a massive storm where things, especially collectively, but also individually in our lives, are going to start rearranging themselves quite quickly. So we can expect quite an eventful month. But one thing that I must need to detail here, when I say these dates and I say the great impact of the energies, this isn't a day. This isn't just like, for example, the 8th of April, the eclipse, or the 20th of April, the Jupiter Uranus conjunction. This is where we are speaking about an extended period of time, even before these events. So, in this present moment, we're on the 3rd of April when I'm recording this. We can so clearly already see the, for example, Jupiter and Uranus conjunction playing out, because technically they're not perfect, but they're still conjunct. For example, certain examples that are very, very obvious: the Iceland volcanic activity, the great earthquake that took place in Taiwan, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday or in the early hours of this morning. Of course, depending on where you are on the planet, all of those are signatures of Uranus. The strange weather that is, playing out almost all throughout the planet, each region with their own strangeness, but it's happening. The solar storm, the Schumann resonance spikes, all of these are just like signs of the imminent storm that is coming. And storm is a keyword actually both related to Uranus, winds, electricity, lightning, but also Jupiter, because on one hand, mythologically, when Zeus lost his cool, lost his temper, it wasn't a pretty sight. Either literally or symbolically, storm followed. But at the same time, even esoterically, some don't necessarily want to say astrologers, but mystics, magicians, etc., associate Jupiter as well with electricity, with storms, with cloud formations, etc. So both of these planets have a lot to do with storm, so to speak. But let us get back to the eclipse, where even the eclipse's symbolism is very relevantly playing out, especially in the world where, now, I'm not sure how to word this because this is a bit delicate under the times that we are living, but please try your best to understand it. Sometimes Chiron plays out and as the wound that you once received, Mercury retrograde, right? Unwillingly, instinctually, Aries. Or this is simply how your being reacts, passes down the same wound to someone else. This is where the someone who was once the victim becomes the aggressor. That is Chiron's dark side, that is Chiron's shadow side, and we can clearly see how it plays out on the world stage. Let's just make the correlations. However, I am very much hoping that we also see the other expression where it is truly promoting healing. Healing of any shape and form. And this is where the most precise and the most relevant aspect that this new moon solar eclipse holds is to the minute exact conjunction with Chiron, the wounded healer. So this is all about healing. But of course, it's Aries type of healing, which is many times not comfortable, not easy, and it has a certain kind of intensity attached to it because, Aries is the warrior. Aries is also the survival instinct. If we look in nature, many times the wound can only be healed after the danger is over. While the danger is on, hence the survival instinct being triggered, the wound is not even many times acknowledged. The vulnerability is bypassed in order for survival to take place. However, after is when the wound is treated, so to speak, one way or another. Either that the wound gets grave, severe, or that rest and the turn off of the Aries switch, the survival and agitation and action and physicality, all that has to take place for the healing. So exactly an eclipse, when Aries is eclipsed, a moment of pause or a moment of reset for healing to take place. But let us begin the analysis of this astrological energy, because as simple as it may look, a conjunction with Chiron, but no other, very relevant aspects with other power players. However, what is happening around the eclipse, it is very, very symbolic and it adds great complexity to it. And another factor is that we must not forget, Aries is the sign of the first breath. It is when something is born, when something sees daylight for the first time. Many times, what is born, well, we don't control it. Many times it is actually chaos, hazard, chance, uncertainty that gives birth to something that ultimately is uncontrollable. That is also part of this energy. Like, even any kind of reproduction is a hazard in the sense that how the genes mix and even what gender is gonna, how should I say, be born in that sense, especially in mammals. Well, that is very much susceptible to hazard and chaos. No one has any kind of control over it in the real sense. Of course, there are other animal species where it's different, but you know what I mean. Many times birth and what is going to be born is totally subjected to chance. That is very, very much Aries as well, where, we can almost look at it as Pisces Aries. And why does Pisces matter? Because the ruling planet of the eclipse is Mars, the ruler of Aries, and Mars is in the sign of Pisces, and Mars himself is forming a conjunction with Saturn. So that is very powerfully karmic, and that is a very, very strong energetic activation, because Saturn gives shape and form. Saturn is the principle which allows anything that exists in spirit, thought, fantasy, imagination, whatever, to become real or not. Mars is the activator. Mars is the impulse. Mars is actually the masculine principle. the seed, so to speak, here. So Mars is doing something very, very important at the time of the eclipse. So you see the synergy here. You see the intensity, the seriousness of this eclipse. Saturn brings the seriousness. But at the same time, something is being born. Saturn is giving shape to it. Mars is planting the seed, basically. The seed in spirit, in thought, in fantasy, in principle, in dream, Pisces. And the eclipse gives birth to it. But Pisces is also the unconscious. So that means we might not be consciously fully aware of what is getting ready to be born. We might not see it. We might not perceive it clearly. We might only be able to just feel it somehow. And whatever has to be born, that may be a really powerful tool of healing, Chiron. And also, like any eclipse, it also pushes us back to our soul path. Everything that we strayed from but was important, now we get the chance to actually go through the right path, symbolically speaking, especially that Mercury retrograde. It is not like exactly conjunct with the eclipse and Chiron, but it is in the neighborhood. It is close enough to it. So that Mercury represents the everything from the past, where we might have strayed. And Aries is a sign, and I'm not speaking about people born with Aries sun. No, I'm speaking about the energy and expression of Aries is one that can stray quite easily. Why? Well, because it is impulsive, because it is the initiator. Sometimes initiation, the Aries type of initiation, lacks that Libra, the opposite sign kind of judgment. So that brings chaos, chance, hazard. And that can also bear the risk of one strays from their soul path. But that isn't necessarily a big deal. That isn't necessarily something negative. It is a new experience. Or it might be very well a karmic shortcut to another experience which comes a bit prematurely, but nothing an eclipse can't put back in its proper order. You know what I mean? So an eclipse is just a realigning. Even better example. You have a device, let's say a laptop, and it's been running for quite some time now. There is so many tabs, applications, stuff like that open. You can imagine that, especially under a Mercury retrograde, even the software gets tired, confused, overheated. A reset, a pause is needed to get things back running on normal or even better. That is how we have to look at the eclipse. And this eclipse, with its very own specific, for the sake of healing Chiron, it is meant to heal something. But with Mercury in the area, one of the tools of the healing is moments of honesty, admitting stuff to ourselves. Mercury, why? Because again, Mars, ruler of Aries, in the sign of unconscious, not conscious, something is revealed, the reset, and Mercury has to admit it. Aries is already the conscious, the self. Or healing through understanding, healing through new, how should I say, new attempts at trying, for example, a healing methodology or a healing technique or something that might have failed in the past, but failed because lack of, let's say, that strong psychological motivation. Mars in Pisces. Mars in the second decan of Pisces even. That is very, very protective. That is very, how should I say, Cancerian-like. So Mars in this part of the sky means serious business when it comes to self-nurture, self-care, self-healing, or Saturn, sacrificing and getting out of your way, doing things, trying things, sacrifices, for example, that you shied away from the past for the sake of healing. So this is where we have a very, very strong seriousness as well. Mars-Saturn conjunction. Or another way this energy can play out is a need, a dire situation that is actually a positive factor because it keeps us motivated and serious about what? Well, the healing. But apart from the healing, this energy can play out in very many ways. Of course, it really depends on where this 19 degrees of Aries falls into your own personal life. Which house is it? Which area of life? First, is it the first house? For example, my case, because Aries is part of my first house. So a self, I am wound especially. But even if you personally may not have that I am wound, you can still become through something in your life a powerful tool of healing others. Because the opposite sign of Aries is ultimately Libra, the seventh house. Whatever happens to the self is in a way projected to others. So let's say this Aries new moon / eclipse somehow pushes you into a project, a new goal, a new something that you want to dish out to the world or local community, but that will require you to change something about you. For example, you have to give up on the comfort of having a lot of, let's say, privacy in your life, because it will require you to put yourself out there much more. That is the sacrifice Saturn of privacy, Pisces. But it is something that ultimately catapults you somewhere, and that Chiron, either through your project initiation, whatever you was, you come as a blessing or something really positive in the life of another person, or Libra business, work, anything, one-on-one alliance, contract, whatever, or you yourself in a way grow. That because that's also Chiron. Chiron was a mentor. Sometimes, healing can also represent that we grow, that we develop something, we refine something, we add a bit to the normal. Like a master instrument player's ear, even physically speaking, is not the same as an average healthy person's, because the musician master's ear, that became like a super specialized organ, so you can't even it's way beyond the average healthy, perfectly healthy ear. So you see what I mean, where sometimes it just brings out something deep within from us that is in a way unnatural, but a blessing, like a great strength, where we go above what would be natural a little bit. But it's very, very much self-oriented, because you have to choose this in order to become it. So this is a classic first house example. In the seventh house, this can be a new value. Why not money, or anything that in a way pushes you into a much healthier, much more authentic value system, as in to live in it every single day. This can heal a lot of wounds which have to do with the physical body, because that's also Taurus. Your opinion, your feeling about yourself. Am I attractive, or you know what I mean? It can be very healing in that sense. Third house. Now, this is very obvious. All of those everyday thoughts, self-talk, self-chat, the buzzing of the lower mind, which is causing a permanent self-wound to bleed permanently, like a permanent open wound. Not enough to kill you, maybe not even enough to cause you real pain, because you get used to it after a while. It simply doesn't hurt. It becomes a bad type of normality where you have to unplug it in order to get rid of it. Hence the eclipse, where you catch yourself down talking yourself. I'm not good enough. Or let me give you the best kind of example. Let's even put it into specifics. Gemini, third house, sibling. Your sister comes and tells you, you look absolutely amazing today, or something about you looks so good. And you tell your sister instead of thank you, and where does it get me? I'm still single. You see the aggression immediately you've done to yourself with this, because everything you repeat and you take it that seriously, even if I'm very sure the soul doesn't mean it, because the soul doesn't want to be single, but there is that, how should I say, symbolically, the devil in the mind. It doubts, and it makes the doubt real. That is something that the eclipse can very much heal. How that is, how it will unfold in your specific life. But that can be one example how this third house eclipse can be profoundly healing. But besides this, it can represent a lot of initiation, new ideas, new thoughts, new way of thinking, new communication, new learning, travels, why not? Or healing relationship with siblings, neighbors, cousins. Fourth house, this is where it can, for some people, literally be a house, a new house. Maybe there is something, moment of crisis, an eclipse that happens around the home, physical home. You need to sell it, or you don't like the neighborhood anymore, or something, and you get the homes of your dream over the course of 6 months. Of course, you get there. Or it can be like maternal wound. It can be anything that has to do with, family, belonging, your roots, children. It can even be the past, sorting something out with your family, a family wound, for example. Fifth house, to take a risk or not, falling in love, a big love. But in order for that big love to enter your life, you need to heal. Or for some people, the reason why you are not falling in love, or love is not knocking at your door, is because maybe there's an unknown hidden heartache that you carry, heartbreak, and you don't even know it. Maybe your inner being, Mars and Pisces, holds like an invisible grudge, and that energy is totally hidden from you. And that's why on the heart level, the connection simply doesn't happen. And Mercury retrograde reveals this, how powerfully healing. Relationship with children, parents-children relationships can be healed. And so much more in the fifth house. Sixth house, physical body healing, medical intervention, all, regardless of how uncomfortable this may be, follow it through, because this is for the greater good. This heals something for the long term. Mercury retrograde. Maybe it's complicated and you have to wait and this analysis, that test, this opinion, second opinion, but follow it through, because if the eclipse is targeting your health, sixth house, physical body, it is helping you on the long term. You're doing this for your future. So any sacrifice, Saturn, Mars, that it may require, it's worth it. But it can be work. It can be daily routine, lifestyle, modus vivendi, an upgrade, something that either is based on the wound or it is profoundly healing. You have to put it into context into your life. Seventh house, of course, contracts, relationships, divorce. But when I say divorce, this is Chiron. Maybe a marriage or relationship is like a prison to you. You finally get to freedom, even if it's hard, painful, complicated. But the freedom is ultimately healing. New moon, a new relationship may come after. But any type of contract, any type of one-on-one, even peace, because seventh house is also our enemies. Is it eighth house? Deeply psychological or financial. Maybe a financial storm, upheaval happens in your life. You suddenly lose a job which you took it for granted because it was so stable just a day ago. You don't know where it will lead you, but be sure that it will lead you to something much truer, much healthier, much more you than whatever was terminated. But it can be like a moment, let's say, symbolically speaking, and with a bit of humor, a craze. One day you are, how should I say, immersed in your work life. You don't even want to, you're comfortable, you know. Next morning, you wake up with an irresistible desire to start your own business, and like it comes over you like a craze. And is it a craze? Or is it something that your soul wants to do in this incarnation? You will have Mercury retrograde season to figure it out. If it's truly a craze or if it's something coming from your soul. But there it is, eighth house, financial. But of course, it is also deeply psychological, especially healing traumas, the past. It is also like sexual healing, where, how should I say, it doesn't matter what kind of lifestyle we have and what kind of philosophical, spiritual, whatever system that drives us. Everyone has a sex life, and if there are wounds there, even if we live a kind of life where that area of life is inactive and it's okay that way, it's part of our specific. A wound is still a wound. It still needs to be addressed. So then there's ninth house, justice, courts of justice. Do you have any legal issues that need solving? This eclipse might be a really important turning point. Higher education. Maybe this is when you decide to study this or that, and sign up to the uni, or do something with your specialization that you already have. Take something, knowledge, mastery, skill to a different level. Or it can be, for very many people, Sagittarius is abroad, leaving their country, moving abroad for work, for relationship, for whatever. 10th house, soul path, career. Now, from the 10th house, I don't even want to give examples, because the 10th house is like very strongly specific to what your soul needs to do. But of course, the average person, big moments that will affect their careers. 11th house. Now, how should I explain this so that it's really clear? This is where, to what kind of people or to what part of the world, of the exterior, do your principles, your ideologies, and your aspirations connect you to? May these be people or just energy, just a principle. Of course, more personally, your hopes and dreams, your friends, your social circle, and everything that you need to do for your retirement. You can imagine that healing also has to be part of this, but the 11th house type of healing is actually maybe where our smallest actions and gestures can help a lot of people. You know what I mean? For example, supporting certain charities which aid people in dire need. That's a small gesture from you, but you're part of a big help. So you know what I mean? And finally, Tau 12th house. Now, this is where it's going to be really karmic. This is where it's really up to your own individual karma, but it can be very powerfully psychological. Just like what I mentioned in the 8th house, just that the big difference is that in the 12th house, it is like a big closure, or it is when something is integrated deep into a soul level. It is beyond human psyche. It is even our ethereal, or better said, energetic divine components. Where in the 8th house, it's much more our psyche. You know what I mean? And, 12th house, hidden enemies, for example. This can also represent peace because it's an eclipse, it's a reset. But it can represent, big, big, big karmic events striking one's life where life changes for good. And the 12th house can also be a medical house. So if you have it either in the 12th house, 8th house, 6th house, then whatever I said for the 6th house, one way or another is valid, because this is where you need to take care of a health issue or something for the long term. So anyway, another expression of this energy, this more collectively, new healing techniques, methodologies, research, theory, everything that has to do with healing, especially that an important planet, Mercury, that is always part of healing and healing process, is in the area, which means the moon, and later on the sun will meet with Mercury after the eclipse. So yes, methodology, research, and anything that has to do with healing can arise from this energy, either as something perfected over the course of a few years, presented to the world or the public for the first time. Mercury retrograde really favors that. Or a need drives someone ultimately to come up or channel or invent or present a really innovative, new healing, whatever. Because, as I said, this can be alternative healing, spiritual, quantum healing, proper hospitals, laboratories, like the modern day medicine. Because Pisces rules hospitals and anything that has to do with medical institution, better said. Saturn, the seriousness. Mars, the sacrifice, as in hours invested into research. They have to pay off one way or another. So this, as I said, includes any type of healing and any type of activity, invention, or whatever which serves healing. Another expression of this energy, as I said, it is deeply karmic and spiritual, where Aries is, as I said, the beginning. Aries is also the head. So this is where both individually and collectively we set in the path that we are going to follow. We, for example, the head contains the eyes, so our sensory organ, then the ears, where we orientate ourselves. So, yes, it is very, very important in the sense that it will simply either realign us to a path that we were always meant to follow. The ruler is in Pisces, so there is strong spiritual, how should I say, a spiritual schematic here that the energy also has to follow. Saturn, Saturn is in Pisces is exactly, how the three fates have woven the thread, the pattern. The energy may be very chaotic, that Uranus, but ultimately the goal in spirit of what this energy has to do, that is set in stone, in the sense Saturn, the crystallizing principle. And even alchemically speaking, Mars boils down Pisces, and what do we get when then the boiling process cools down? Saturn, dry and cool, salt, or the minerals from the seawater. That is exactly what's happening. So it is definitely taking us somewhere, revealing a path to us. Either something totally new, where we do need to step out of our comfort zone, for maybe that is where our soul path is leading us, but staying in our comfort would be the straying from our soul path in this case. So then the eclipse will somehow push us out of the comfort to follow the unknown, the new adventure, like the zero fool in tarot, a totally brand new beginning. But it can also very well be going back to something and having a fresh and new and much healthier and more determined approach where external reality also helps us. Hence Mercury retrograde. So this is one way this can play out. But we must not forget that everything that I have mentioned is simply the goal of the energy. It is the effect of the eclipse. At the moment of the eclipse, we might not really be aware of all of that. We can only trust the process, absolutely, but we may not be consciously very aware of that. Mars and Pisces, unconscious, and Mercury retrograde, so we are figuring it out. And it's very heated in Aries, So the eclipse might come with upheaval. The eclipse might come with very uncomfortable energies, especially that a minor aspect that it holds is a semi-sextile to Jupiter. It's going to be amplified. And not the end goal, but rather the crisis element to it, the surprise, the shock, the this just happened. It's something just happened, and there is no other choice but to adapt to it. So that part is going to be amplified, magnified, so we can expect turmoil, upheaval, even if it comes as purely in a positive way, let's say in your life. The surprise factor, the intensity will still leave you shocked, almost like you were hit by a lightning bolt. The polarity will not matter, it will still come as like a total solar eclipse. Your life was in a certain way one day, you stepped already into a different dimension, dynamic wise, the next day. So as I said, because this is such a powerful eclipse, total solar eclipse, and also as you see here, the nodes are very close to the new moon. And literally, the closer the phenomenon is to the nodes, doesn't matter what eclipse we are speaking about, lunar, solar, or whatever, the stronger its karmic effects. And this is pretty close. 19 degree, the new moon, and the node at 15 degree of Aries, which means it opposes the south node at 15 degree of Libra via combusta. So the path of fire, 15 degrees from Libra to 15 degrees of Scorpio is a part of the sky when their relationships and energies and are very, very heated up, combust, confrontations, negotiations, how should I say? Even contemplating what to choose, making options, anything presumes that there is an inner fire, at least you brainstorming, at least, if not heart storming or any other. So you see the path of fire. And this is the end because very soon the south node will move away from this 15 degree onto 14, etc. degree of Libra. So this is the final moment when that fire that needs to be ignited in relationships for any reason to terminate, to settle something, for example, in courts of justice, or to form a new alliance, this is very much on. So you can imagine it's going to be pretty heated. Now, another element that I absolutely love with this eclipse, I have to show you the fictional planets for this. So the fictional planets don't exist in physical reality. They're just, imaginary points. And where there is Black Moon Lilith, and I'm sure most listeners are very familiar with her and her symbolism, the primal energy, many times the shadow, primal attraction, the raw instinctual energy within us. But there is White Moon Selena, which is the opposite, the highest expression of the soul, the more divine and benevolent and divinely connected parts of our soul. And these two, at the moment of the eclipse, hold a trine. They speak with each other in perfect harmony, in supreme harmony. This is where the physical moon, the actual moon, is part of the eclipse. So the soul is eclipsed a little bit, our emotional world. But the two other components, let's say, of the soul, Black Moon Lilith, the primal, the shadowy, and the most elevated, White Moon Selena, the light, are joining forces to guide us. Now, of course, this means that White Moon Selena holds a semi-sextile with the eclipse, which means the actual moon. So this energy may not be very comfortable, but of course, because something in our emotion is eclipsed, reset. And also, Black Moon Lilith will hold a quincunx with the real moon, which means awkwardness, which means surprise, surprise, blows our minds, Virgo, or we simply cannot see it yet for what it is. But the harmony is what matters between the two. This simply means it doesn't matter how the eclipse enters your life, its final goal, its final result is going to be a blessing for all parts of your soul. And I find this fact that White Moon Selena is between Jupiter and Uranus. White Moon Selena, as you see, is 20 degree, Uranus 21 degree, Jupiter 19 degree of Taurus. So this is where the earthquake, the quantum leap, the tsunami, the great storm that Jupiter and Uranus are promising are first-hand taking place within our souls. And because it's White Moon Selena, whatever happens, we are invited and guided to turn it into our greatest good, our highest good, which means love. All of the higher expressions of Taurus. Love, but love which matters, love which can be real, true value, to be able to see beyond the illusions and all of the complexity of the modern world. Scorpio, the complexity. Taurus, raw simplicity, nature's way, nature's blessing, nature's wisdom, nature's own unique intelligence. Nature cannot ever get it wrong because there's always a divine purpose and pattern, whatever it happens in her and through her. That is White Moon Selena asking us to activate this natural benevolence, hope, optimism, but a healthy one, a real one within our souls, to make this energy our own, regardless of how it plays out. If it's a divorce, if it's the end of a job, end of a cycle in your life, no problem, because what awaits beyond the door of the future is something that literally eclipses whatever ended. It is where, imagine getting born in that sense. For the child, it may be so uncomfortable. It is exiting into an alien world. But compare the world within the womb to the external world. One is much more full of possibilities and it's a different dimension basically. So this is where, if the eclipse is ending and terminating something in your life, work with it and don't see it as doom and gloom, as divine punishment, as the divine being strict with you, as, you know, the most doomy and gloomy lens that we can see it with. The self-victimizing Pisces energy, which can be part of the deal because Mars, Saturn are there, and two malefics. If you necessarily want to victimize yourself, this energy will let you and encourage you, but nothing good will come out of it. So instead of allowing that, we must really tune into the well of benevolence within our souls and bring out the very best. You know, this is where, when the universe gives you something, you have to accept it in order to alchemize it. The universe may give you something that is not all that useful to you now, but you don't know how it can be your lifesaver in a couple of weeks, months, even days. You don't know. This is why the best thing to do at an eclipse like this is to be only half in a state of surrender, and half in a state of, in a way, being opportunistic, seizing whatever opportunity comes our way and is relevant to us. And last but not least, I need to say a few words about the Sabian symbol of this eclipse because I find this so beautiful. A young girl feeding birds in the winter. Now, if this is basically almost hand in hand with Chiron, because what does this mean? Infinite compassion. You know, winter, a state and a cycle of direness when Demetra is grieving and mourning and the lands are bare, everything is frozen, food is just a dream, a summer's dream, so to speak. But there is the young girl a symbol of our more divine instinct, because no one said that our lowest self, our instinctual self, is purely uh, aggressive and animalistic. Or better said, even animals are capable of acts of compassion. All you need to do is just either go outside and look, or turn on the nature channels and look at certain documentaries where many times something happens in the, let's say, minds of certain predators, and it's almost like they're broken for a moment and they're capable of acts of great compassion, like a lioness saving an antelope baby from a crocodile. An example. So that means the very same thing is also part of our human instincts and lower self. No one says that the lower self has to be just the filth or the aggressor, the predator. The lower self has seeds of great primal ancestral benevolence in it. White Moon, Selena, and Taurus ultimately, but also the Sabian symbol, the little girl doing something which is very Piscean, compassionate. And this is the power of love, where the power of love can change everything. It can change the frequency that everything in existence resonates with. That is how we create or elevate everything within our spheres into a higher dimension, so to speak. Symbolically, but not as symbolically, because this is also quantum physics. This is how, with compassion, with true love, not romantic love. Or I cannot say that romantic love will not be part of the eclipse theme for certain people, because Aries is the ram who is ready to mate. You know what I mean? And when the ram is ready to mate is when it is at the peak of its strength. Chiron, there might be wounds related to that. And many times sexual wounds are the, how should I say, most deep I am self wounds, because they can be totally invisible, us being unaware of them, and but they reach the depth of our instincts. They shot our survival mechanism down. We stray from the I am, and that's when funny things happen to us in life, let's say like that, because this immediately affects relationships of any kind, even job, even utility contracts. It affects everything. And many times we are totally blind to it, especially those people who are deeply spiritual, because the spiritual, it won't even allow them to suffer from a sexual wound, so they won't even know that it's there. You know what I mean? This is where you have a cyst. If it doesn't hurt and if it doesn't display, you will not know that it's there. But it can. But there will come a moment when it gets bothersome or dangerous, and it will have to be removed. And that will be the moment when you will become aware of it. So, you know what I mean? So for some people, it can be very well romantic love. However, even within that, compassion and true unconditional love has to be the main frequency. And if we do that, we have a great power within our hands. White Moon Selena conjunct this Jupiter and Uranus. Because Jupiter and Uranus on their own, especially in Taurus, it means bring on the chaos. But with White Moon Selena, it's almost like we have the choice to make the chaos benevolent for us personally. You know what I mean? This is where we have a certain kind of a small degree of control over it, but through our greatest faith, White Moon Selena, and the very, very best from our soul, the greatest benevolence from within us. And if we're able to dish this out to the table, to especially at around the time of the eclipse, to be somehow embrace and be our most benevolent selves, this is where we can truly expect miracle. However, again, I must say, in the world stage out there and around this 8th of April, the girl feeding the birds in the winter, you know what? It's gonna be the winter. Scary stuff. Or maybe a hopeless situation, but the girl feeds it. You know what I mean? She saves the day. Compassion, love, even if it's smaller than the aggression or the wound, you know, Chiron. And Aries, warrior, war, aggression, assertion, and a war is on, not one war, but many wars are ongoing as we speak, so you can imagine that will be amplified. But we must not allow that to minimize the power of love, the power of compassion. The girl does what she can. She cannot feed all the birds in the forest, but she does what she can. And what she can, because of that attitude, is White Moon Selena, is divinely blessed. Even Black Moon Lilith, trine White Moon Selena, comes with her benevolence. As in, Black Moon Lilith in Virgo, take no BS. That can be very, very benevolent. You know, if you want to help, make sure that your help is actually helpful. You know what I mean? Black Moon Lilith, a positive, constructive, and necessary criticism. This is where let's not help symbolically, let us truly help. Or Black Moon Lilith in Virgo. Sometimes the soul can only come with the benevolence, but it is the mind, Virgo, Mercury is home, that can come with the brainstorming solutions. And Black Moon Lilith and Virgo know good from evil. The discernment, discriminate good from evil, but in a real sense. You know what I mean? Good and evil are based on actions and not history and not anything else. This is where, if you have to judge, then judge correctly. You know what I mean? Judge things through the Virgo lens. See what they do, the effect, the action. Let the action speak, not anything else, not the history of it. You know, opposite sign of Virgo, Pisces, the history, the past. You know, the present speaks. The mercurial approach, Mercury retrograde, of course. So when even Black Moon Lilith is in this benevolent dance with White Moon Selena, ultimately her positive aspect, you can imagine that this gives us power to turn the energies of eclipse to our greatest good. And that is what matters much more than the scary stuff and the doom and gloom that we might also see playing out there. So I do believe this is also one of the expressions of the Mars and Saturn conjunction, because Saturn is the wall, the control principle. We can be that wall where we use it to limit anything that is impure, everything that is violent, Mars, everything that is destructive, evil, and doesn't serve anyone's greater good. We limit that. We become much more responsible. So I think I'm going to leave this recording at this. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and wishing everyone your strongest spiritual, moral, and benevolent self to be active at the time of the eclipse, because this gives us a great power to do a lot of good in our own lives, or in the lives of our loved ones, or in the lives of the collective. But this energy is definitely calling onto us to become and be warriors of love. So thank you, everyone. And thank you for all the love, all the beautiful words, all the support. And until next time, bye for now.